Let's go.
Hello, everyone.
Hi.
Good morning, afternoon, evening, depending on where you are. Should we get started?
I see Sana hasn't joined yet.
It looks like Tal Sana is on vacation. I think Canada has some holiday today, which I don't remember what it is. Um, yeah, she pinged me late last night.
I see. Okay.
Yeah, and sorry, I have not been able to attend. Well, it is also a holiday in India, but I'll join given the need. We are a week away from the workshop. I have not been able to attend the last couple sessions. I was traveling last week for work, and the week before was a holiday in India. But then I did catch up with both. I did catch up with Sana as well, a little bit with you, Tal. So, Tal, if you can help me out here, we have a few agenda topics that we have talked about. Just quickly running through the agenda. One is anything that we need to do in terms of agenda planning, content for the workshop. Of course, we'll discuss during the workshop, but anything high level that we need to plan for, this is the last SIG1 meeting before we go into the Dev Summit. So let's spend some time on this. I would say about 30 minutes. I don't know, if I didn't see the previous notes talking about, so I'm trying to, as I talked last time, we will create a working group structure in terms of providing updates back to SIG1. So not everyone may have updates for every meeting of SIG1, but that's okay. But let's apply this structure moving forward. And then anything else we need to discuss in terms of logistics for the SIG1. And if there are other topics, please do add those to the agenda doc, which is linked off of the Slack channel.
Kashyap, and then this is Byung.
Hey, tell me.
Hi. Last week, Sana lead some architecture working group one for next week presentation. I think that we didn't sort out. I think Tao sent his version and for edit. So I don't think we closed that discussion. So northbound, southbound, east, west. So Tao, you have some the diagram, but I don't know. We conclude that or not.
Yeah,
Are you?
I think that's part of the workshop planning, because the idea, that slide was a slide that Sana prepared originally.
Mm-hmm.
So we're diving into the topic, I guess. So
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
she prepared a few slides for the day one of the summit presentation, and yeah, as we all know, it's great to give a presentation when you talk things through, but slides can be very important, especially diagrams. People take photos of them and send them to people in their company, and it becomes slides can be very important. So we had quite a fiery debate, I guess, about the slide, and you're right. I think we should finalize it. So we have actually 3 versions right now, and I think we can probably converge all of them into something.
Hey, Tal, you want to bring up that deck? That was the first line item here, network architecture and the various versions that we need to finalize.
Sure.
So let's get
Yeah.
into it.
Yes, let's get into it. Okay, let me maybe you can stop sharing, I'll share. Maybe that'll be easier. Thanks.
Yeah. You found it?
I'm trying to share the right window. Just a second. I'm just going to share my entire screen here with some risk. Okay, it's not letting me share just one window. Did this work? Can you see this?
We can see your screen. I think.
Okay, good. So here, let me just log in quickly. So yeah, let's first finalize and make sure that the the topics and everybody knows what to prepare, because some people are on the line for presenting. So we have for day one, we have this what's new in FER2 and beyond for our SIG. And here is what listed. So we have this introduction that we'll talk about in a minute, right? That Sanai is working on. Kaushik, you're listed here too, but I don't think you're going to be present, right, next week.
Yeah, I mean, I won't be able to. I won't be there in person, but I will be there on the VC for some period of time, like at least for the first 3 hours or so. But beyond that, yeah, not for the afternoon session until the lunch break, probably.
Okay, so what do you think? Would you be here for this session? This will be quite late at night for you.
Yeah, I think for those 2 days, it's fine. I will be there, but then I expect, given the live audience, that most of the discussion and so forth will be in the room. I will be there mostly to, I guess, set the tone, intro, and then listen in.
Okay. All right. So you're listed here as a moderator, which is fine. You're a co-chair, and we have you as presenting the introduction, but I'm not sure. Well, you and Sana can handle it between you.
Yeah, we'll figure it out. Yeah.
Okay, and then Sana worked on this quite a bit to divide things between day one and day two. So I'll try to summarize what she what she wanted to do. So day one is kind of a general introduction, and she wanted to use the session mostly for recruiting, for presenting what NAFIO and SIG1 are really about and where we're headed. So as we know, we kind of failed to design an FEO R2. We did not produce use cases that are immediately useful for SIG2, but we did talk quite a bit about a lot of topics that we want to handle in the future. So we'll show where it's heading, and the heavier stuff that requires a deeper dive will be on day two. So for day one, we have the introduction, and then we have 3 presentations for the work groups. So Tim Carey, you're on the hook for an ORAN presentation. And I'll remind you, for day one, things are pretty high level, right? We're expecting the audience to be a lot of XX and maybe higher level people, right? So, and the introduction will already take quite a bit of time. So this whole session is 45 minutes. So we're not expecting these presentations to be long. I would say 5-10 minutes, just to generally say what the topic is and how NEFIO would be involved. So we have Tim Carey here on ORAN. Sana will then produce architecture in the industry for work group 1. And for modeling, Bernard, you are listed here.
Bernard, yes, I'm here, but actually I told that sort of you were actually more suitable to address that topic from my perspective. So that's why I actually declined and wanted to hand it over to you. I'm not quite sure if Sana has also synced with you regarding that. But,
she did not, but I'll say that I'm already on the list quite a bit with a few presentations. I was hoping that, you know, I'm also listed here just to mention just a few words on Tosca, really not a lot to say. But if you prefer that, sure. You know, I'm trying to remove myself from being too present in presentations. Excuse me, just 1 second. I need to quit for a second. Kaushik, can you take over? Just 1 minute.
Yeah. Hey, so while Tal is back, right? So Sana, Tal, and myself, we have been also spending time. Although I couldn't join the SIG1, we have been spending time on this agenda. One thing that I would request inputs from some of you as you go through this, view is, how do we coalesce SIG1, SIG2, SIG3 topics? As in, I don't want us to think of these as completely independent groups. They have a lot of overlap. And as we curate the topics for day 1 and 2 of the Dev Summit, we should ensure that despite the focus areas, we should, if there are topics that need both SIG 1 and SIG 2, to collectively present, or there are topics that one leads to the other, we should be a little bit mindful of those, so that we don't. Otherwise, it creates this kind of a notion that, hey, each group is working somewhat independently and so forth, which is not always the case. So I've been also spending time with Sana on this one, but I would request all of you to provide your key inputs either today, tomorrow, ideally, so that we can keep updating this agenda and lock it in. Bala?
Yeah, thanks, Kaushik. Yeah, first of all, thanks for putting this together. So one thing, there is a topic of beyond R2 too, right? There is somewhere here beyond R2. So obviously we're doing on multiple POCs with the intent to make them mainline in the upcoming releases. That includes SDK, that includes, for example, service assurance policy, things like that. But I was purely from a story perspective, if R1 was the showcasing the principles of Nefio, the way I'm thinking R2 is the living the principles of Nefio, because we did something using the principles in R1. Now we are showing to the world that using the same principles, how we can add additional workloads. That's where the RAN workloads are coming in, and open air interface core is also coming in. So before we add too many features, I was thinking for R3 or in the time frame, if we can have one actual commercial implementation of 5G core or RAN, not exact, not in, maybe may not be the entire suite. If we can have, I mean, we have a lot of vendors in our community, so we can have, if we have one of the vendor workloads, I mean, obviously we need that, we need some volunteers from any of the vendors to, onboard one of those workloads onto Nefio during the R3 time frame. That would be a great win, because we will find a lot of gaps. And then that way we can solidify our most fundamental use case of orchestrating workloads. So I think that is something we need to target beyond R2, because otherwise we can say that, okay, Nefio can orchestrate free 5GC, open air interface workloads, but there is, when it comes to the real world workloads, there may be a lot of gaps. So I think probably in the R3 timeframe, if we can convince some of our community members to onboard one of the actual commercial workloads, may not be entire 5GC, just one function in 5G core such as UPF, or one function in RAN such as DU. We will learn a lot of gaps, and that will, according to me, that may change a few things in our API as well. I think that way we can solidify that use case.
Fantastic, Bala. This is in fact a great topic. We won't spend a lot of time here because what you bring is very important for R3 planning, but it needs a lot of discussion. But I think the meta point that you're saying, I'm aligned with you, which is R3 onwards, we need to really productize Nefio in a way with real network function vendors, so that it has a line of sight to commercialization. It may not be commercial ready by R3, but we have to have the deliberate way of carving that out. Starting out, it cannot be seen only as a science project. Not to say it is a science project right now, but it is somewhat of that until now, right? It has to truly stand on its own legs, that customers and industry partners see it with the right level of maturity. So let's bring it up as a key topic for R3 discussion. Sana and I have talked about this, just to be clear, in terms of logistics of how to, because what you bring up is one aspect of getting vendors on board. There are many other things that we need really to have more customers, meaning likely customers like telcos, who should be much more active and vocal in Nefio, as an example. So there are a few key topics that we all will anchor in terms of what would it take to shape up R3 and beyond for it to be successful the way we have envisioned it, if that helps.
Yes, absolutely, Kaushik, and that will definitely bring up the gaps in the way we are assuming things we are creating our APIs or some of our internal operators / functions. In that way, we can solidify, as we go along, this can be a solid project and this can be a real project, just like you said, not a science project to onboard the commercial workloads. Thank you so much.
Cool. I don't know if Tal is back or not. So maybe I'll just quickly.
Yes, I'm back. Sorry.
Okay.
I had some external interference. Yes, let's please finalize this just to make sure before we move on. So, so Bernard, you're saying you want to be off the hook for this. Okay, I'll present a slide or two. If it's okay, I might just run a slide by you to make sure that you're on board as well.
That's fine.
Because we actually had very little discussion about this. So I'm going to be at least very transparent in all my presentations and just say point blank that this is the topic. We didn't do a lot of work and we need some help. So I'm okay doing that. So I'm thinking it'll be 1 or 2 slides max. Okay, so I think day 1 is settled. I hope everybody knows what they're doing. For day 2, for the deep dives on north, south, east, west integration. So here we have Sandeep will step up about service assurance. And myself and Bernard are also helping with the slides there. And again, we have 45 minutes here, so we'll have 2 deep dives. I think that'll cover it easily. And then we'll have Alexis and Sagar will be talking about a deeper dive into ORAN, right? And the RAN use case specifically. So we're already talking in day 1 about ORAN, but I think that's okay. It's such a big topic and such a lot of interest from the industry. Day 1 again is more oriented towards XX, so talking maybe more generally what goals Nefio has there, where I think the deep dive will be really going into the details, technical architectural details of ORAN and what RAN means for Nefio. That's what we have. How does that look, everybody?
Just one comment, Tal. I mean, why do we say UE RAN SIM? I mean, that's free 5GC, right? I mean, it's just.
Okay, I'm not really sure where this came. This had a lot of people worked on this over the last couple of weeks. Yeah, I agree with you. I think ORAN and open air interface, I think sounds like
makes sense. Yeah.
Enough deep dive. Yeah. Okay. All right. So.
Yeah, maybe Tal. Yes.
Even.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Sorry, please go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to say maybe there is something missing. It's how to onboard a network function in a few ecosystem. Maybe it's not very clear.
Okay, that is more actually SIG3 right now. So we have actually a very deep dive presentation about this. So it's on day 1. So for SIG3, the whole presentation is going to be on vendor onboarding.
Okay,
speaking
cool.
about the SDK and Helm. And we're going to have you see a few different people are going to be presenting.
Great. Sorry.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm not going over the rest of. I'm only focusing right now on SIG1 and our responsibility.
Okay.
So I'll jump to the next topic, which is Sana's slides that she prepared for day 1 presentation.
Hey, Tal, just one thing that I wanted to bring up, right? Which is some of these I was bringing up while you were slightly away a few minutes earlier, which was there is a need for a lot of cross-pollination across these topics, across the 6, meaning, let's say, vendor onboarding. A lot of the requirements for vendor onboarding may even come from customers like telcos, which could be through, let's say, SIG1. I don't want to mean to say SIG1 is telcos and SIG3 is vendors. That's not the point. But my point is some of these topics may need cross-pollination. So let's not necessarily label them as SIG 1, 2, 3. They may be led by those 6, but everyone across the 6 should be willing to participate. That's point number 1. It's more logistics and so forth. But the second point is somewhat borrowing from that. if we should structure some of these topics in a way that it leads to that synergy across the SIG. So for example, if SIG1 can talk about how they expect vendors to really onboard onto the larger automation architecture, then SIG3 can address that architectural need by presenting how the vendor onboarding will work. So it will coalesce, as we discuss, into one unified story. It is flowing from all the top level requirements into the design and the thoughts around that. So let's just make sure those, as we, this is more of a, how do we when we prepare the agenda, how do we present it in front of the community so people start to see how the six are all related together?
Yeah, I'm agreeing with you. I think at this point it's too late to change the structure. The structure was kind of handed down from the TSC, from Kanban mostly. He really wanted it to be divided into 3 SIGs, moderating the topics that they were working on, and every SIG getting the same amount of time. This has gone through a lot of rehashing over the last 2 weeks. So I think at this point it's pretty much locked. What I try to do, because I'm kind of the editor here of the wiki, so I really try to de-emphasize the SIGs here, put them in parentheses. So these are just a series of presentations with a small break about R2 and beyond. So people can think of it that way. I agree that there has to be more synergy, but I would also say this is just a meta issue that we have to have internally to make the SIGs more connected. SIG2 made a few presentations for our SIG here, for SIG1 in the past, but there's not a lot of opposite connections, right? I will say just generally, to Bala's point as well, I think SIG1 failed for R2 to provide a clear plan for what the features would be in the use cases. So what SIG2 and SIG3 did, they just went ahead with whatever they had on the table, dealing with technical debt and dealing with open air interface that got included. So I would say that for Nefio, R2 is very reactive to the situation we had. It's not a very directed release, but that's okay as well. Not every release has to be this huge launch of new features, right? So that's where we are right now. But I think we're all motivated to improve it. And actually, if you look at this agenda, I think it's pretty impressive what we have moving forward, right? Even if we don't have a lot of meat on all the bones, right? And we're treating it as the summit. It's a developer summit. The point is to use the summit as kind of like a super meeting. So just like the meetings we have here, yes, it's presenting it to a new audience, but it's an opportunity for us to meet face-to-face, discuss, and try to move everything forward, right? The service assurance use case, the ORAN integration, etc. Okay. With that, if there are no more comments or questions, I'll go back to the diagram and hopefully we'll be able to converge on something for Sana. So here is the original image that Sana gave. And I think some of us were a little bit up in arms regarding the layered approach here, because if you look at this classical diagram, it seems like, oh, here's Nefio at the bottom layer. It means Nefio is managing the cloud and everything else has to go through Nefio in order to talk to any resources, right? And this raised a few concerns and eyebrows from people, right? So what I tried to do, and I labeled it Tal's version, even though we had some, I am using feedback from other people. So let me just remove this other version. Oops. Sorry. Let's do this. We have a rather painful issue as Googlers, because even though we have a google.com email address, it does not work well with Nefio Google Drive. So we had to create a special nefio.org email just to solve that problem. It does not give us any special prestige. Let me promise you that. Okay. So what I try to do, and I know it's a little bit complex, so I'll go over it. And Sana's comment also, I met with her on Friday and Thursday, and she wants to work on this a bit more and simplify. But let me explain what I did, just so you people here in the room understand what my motivation was. So I left basically the top portion the same. I'm calling it high-level orchestration. And you can see it's kind of the kind of top-down orchestration that we're used to, layer by layer. Here, I called it cloud native orchestration. Sometimes I call it side-by-side orchestration. And I'm really trying to show two things side by side. So the big components here that we have are the management cluster with Nefio, and there are northbound APIs that could connect to ORAN, SO, etc. This includes the topology controller, but I'm not really showing, I'm not going into that deep details here. This is trying to be high level. An important aspect here is the multi-cloud infra management, in parentheses, external. The point being that, Nefio is not in charge of managing cloud. Cloud providers are in charge of managing their clouds. And we have various APIs, abstractions of sorts that we've discussed in terms of southbound integration, right? Cluster API, cross-plane, and others, and maybe we'll have to create our own. We don't know exactly what we're going to do with this quite yet, but we do know that it's out of scope to actually implement it. It's something we're interfacing with. Nefio is not going to install Kubernetes on sites, right? Especially bare metal, right? The idea is we will interface with systems that do that. But what I try to show here is that we are just one more user of this, right? Nefio is, inside network function packages, we have infrastructure requirements, right? For example, SRIOV, right, from Multis. So Nefio is able to orchestrate that and possibly talk to this external infra management thing to put those requirements there. But again, we're just one more client of that system. For example, ORAN's O2 APIs would also interface with that. And that's what I tried to show here, that we're side by side with that, but we're not on top of that. We're not, it's not like here that, ORAN has to go through Nefio in order to talk to the cloud. No, ORAN can talk to that directly and doesn't have to involve Nefio. Nefio is only about network functions, right? But because network functions do have infra requirements, that's why there's this extra line here. So I don't think that's too complicated. What I changed here is also for the workload cluster. So you can see the Nefio logo appearing here twice. It appears as configuration as data in the management cluster, where it manages those CRDs. The operator provided by the vendor is the one that actually manages the CNF based on those CRDs that Nefio produces. The Nefio SDK can be used to create the CNF operator. So that's where the logo appears twice. Now, I think Tim, actually, I think Eric, you added the GitOps relationship here. So Sana and I both had a question of what you meant by that. But anyway, this is what I managed to produce, which I thought was a bit more accurate than the original one. But I don't know if there are too many lines here that make it confusing. So here we are. Comments, feedback?
Hey, Tal, there are a few raised hands. I forget who is
I can't
first.
see the raised hand. Yeah, please.
Who's turn?
I don't know who's first. It's hard to.
I put the raised hand before, but
I think being is first. Please go ahead. Being.
Yeah. Tal, can you show me the your diagram again?
Yes.
The originally when I saw Sana's diagram, I thought the GitOps is very important for Nefio.
Oh,
so
yeah.
that's why if I change diagram, I put the GitOps as a center, and then the service orchestration SMO, they're gonna send intent. Anyway, Nefio pick up intent from the GitOps. That was the GitOps is the main the roles. But here you are introducing the northbound API. That is the taking the conventional the interface, for example, NF deploy management API and O1, O2 interfaces. That's the new diagram saying northbound interface will handle that. And then I think the reason someone put the GitOps is very important for Nefio to me. That's why when the northbound interface API talking to Nefio, I think they're talking through the GitOps, I think. And also, if someone wants to send the intent instead of using the imperative, command-based the interface, I think Nefio pursuing for declarative and the more the using CD-based triggering. So that means this diagram still have some room for confusing people, I think. So that's why I thought the GitOps is a center, and then anybody who wants to talking to Nefio going through GitOps, and they've sent their intent, and also they have to provide CRD for their intent. And the CR, they're coming into GitOps, and the nephew northbound, nephew management cluster, they taking that the CRD and CR, and they distribute. They know where to send, which workload cluster will get it. And there's another GitOps config sync in the workload cluster. Each of them, they got it. Then they have a CD and like Flux or the config syncs. That's why the operator triggered by that indirectly. So, but this one, we're combining many things. That's why still confused. Still confusing. Yeah. It's better, but still confusing.
Okay.
Maybe I try to push some diagram after with a different vision, but I think you're right, because today there's some concept in Nephew we don't see in such figure. Typically, all this package management is not really well represented here. While it brings a lot of value for me from Nephew point of view, but it's maybe unusual as a representation to describe that. But I think that's something we should draw. I don't know what is the best way to do it, but I agree we need to have more, let's say, more focus on this GitOps approach that is key within Nephew.
Okay, these are, I hear these opinions. I can say that we went back and forth, Sanaa and I, we put this in and out. By the way, I do think DevOps has to be removed. It's very different from GitOps. But at the end, I argued for removing GitOps from the diagram, and I'll explain why. I think it's an implementation detail. The fact that it goes through Git right now is something that just Porch and config sync use. The point being that we have declarative APIs. I mean, that is the point of everything. And that's what I tried to say by saying cloud native orchestration here. So maybe I would put it this way, right? The idea being that GitOps could be involved, but in some cases it's optional. It doesn't really matter that you're going through a Git repository with commits. The point is that you have textual representation.
I disagree, Tal. I think it's very important in the global Nephew system, because today in each workload you have also your config sync that will play this role to deploy all the resources described in your Git repo. If that is Git or another solution, I don't care. But this GitOps approach, where you fetch the resources to be deployed in an external repo and then deploy it in a Kubernetes cluster, I think it has some impact. And after, we have not described all these impacts, but we have also impact on observability, on how way we know the various resources are deployed, and so on, how we can give back information to let's say other components. That I think that's something that is quite important in the Nephew architecture today, as far as I understand.
So I agree it's important in architecture, but I would question the implementation, right? So I'll just give you a preview that I do have a deep dive, achieving telco scale with Nephew, that I'm trying to present, and I will show you how you can store everything not in GitOps, but in a traditional database, right? And what would be the advantages, the pros and cons for that. So Git, we call it GitOps. It's a strange word. It kind of evolved from DevOps, but became something very different because the idea is automation instead of development and writing code, right? I think the principles of GitOps are right, but putting Git here is to me an implementation detail, right? It's more about the idea of being declarative. And remember that Porch uses Git, but it can also use other repositories too, right? It can get the blueprints, for example, from a traditional image repository.
Tom, one comment. I think you're correct. The Git is application implementation, but some of the industry architecture term, they call repository-based declarative onboarding and CD-based triggering. So if you not comfortable with naming GitOps, you can using a more generic term. But idea is, to me, whenever ONAV and then SORN they communicate, they're not communicating directly through the conventional API any longer. That's not the declarative. So you provide intent, but intent storing to some kind of repository with the GitHub or some other implementation. Then using CD, then you get the intent through CD. That triggering point, the plug into operator and then execute it. That's the key. To me, that's the key concept, architecture concept with the NFU. So you can generalize GitOps, but GitOps is very important portion to me. Eric mentioned that too, but somehow we have to mention it. If you can put note that this is a implementation, the view, but you can generalize if you want to.
Yeah,
but I think in the main principle of Nephio, I think GitOps is mentioned. So
yeah, I don't know what to say quite about this, other than we have different opinions, and I think it will be hard to converge, whether it's an implementation or foundational.
I'm sorry, I'm not going to ask a question, but I just want to add the statement to what Tal is saying. I think what Tal is suggesting is this is a very high level architectural diagram. For example, it doesn't show any intercomponents, doesn't show config sync or even ports or KPT, none of those. It's a very high level architectural component that he's representing, because of which some of the methodologies that we use, either GitOps or we are integrating with the OCI, may not belong here. I think I agree with Tal on this one, because he's representing a very high level picture here.
Even high level picture is confusing still, really. So if ONAP, from ONAP, architecture views, I don't know how to connect correctly to Nephew, because my understanding is through the GitHub and that's decorative way. But if you're talking plug in the network function API in O1, O2 in an API directly, then it's very confusing. So even though high level, it's still confusing. So that's why audience wants to understand how to reach the Nephew. Nephew is still in the island to me, and how to reach from the other upper system or the south, the east system. I don't know. It's a clear way. This diagram should clarify.
So yeah, Sana also put / Kubernetes APIs. And we got some feedback. We keep removing these. I mean, one thing we can do is just remove this entirely, right? And we're not saying what the API is, because people would want to dive down. But this is why we have the deep dives too. So we could potentially present this diagram. People will ask, wait, what do you mean O2 talking to some API? What is that API? We'll say then, come tomorrow to the deep dive and we'll discuss this in more detail. It's a work in progress. That's one thing we can do. Look, guys, I don't really know. We have like 20 minutes left. I don't think it's going to be possible for us to converge on something today. So I'm not quite sure what to do here. Kaushik, if you can provide some leadership or guidance, what we can do, because this is our last meeting before the presentation next week, and we want, I would suggest something like this. Nobody's going to be very happy with the diagram. We just want to make sure that nobody, I think, objects to anything. So if we can come out that way, it can be non-offensive to any of us members here, then maybe it could be something that Sana would present. What do you think, Kaushik?
Yeah, so a few things. Tal, first of all, thank you for your alternate view, right? Let me just summarize a few things, right? One, we need to make sure whatever view we present should be aligned to the Nephio mission, which is whatever the diagram that we had remembered, the 3 automation lanes. It should be aligned with that. That's point number 1. Second, I know you're trying to make it factually true in terms of showing these things, but these arrows are a little bit more confusing to me, at least, even though, of course, you tried to explain it to me the other day as well. I actually like the layered approach. We need to update the layering to remove that kind of a perception that Nephew layer is the one controlling the cloud and the network functions. I think as long as that notion or perception goes away, I think other ways to represent the block diagram becomes simpler, if you may, visually, if you do it in a layered approach versus an approach like this. But that's just my personal thing. And now logistically, what I would do is, a few of us, like Sana and I, will really have to take an anchor on this one, and we'll take a very high level stab at it. I know we will not have the time to sync with the community or align with Sigmund here, given the short time. So we will anchor it that way in the Dev Summit. But then we have heard sufficiently enough that we know what kind of concerns have been exposed, or rather brought to attention by the community members. So we will work within those guardrails and we'll present it with that caveat, because I don't think, to the point that Talia making, we just don't have the time to iterate and align within SIG1 at this point before the summit. So some of us will just do it in a somewhat bureaucratic way, if you may, without with the right caveats. But I actually like the layered approach for the simplicity, which we just need to remove some of those perceptions. I think otherwise it will become simpler to present. So I'm happy to take also a stab working with Sana on that one.
Sure. Yeah, I'll just say, final point from me is that part of what Kubernetes represents is changing the layered approach, right? It kind of turns things on their head because Kubernetes is itself an orchestrator, right? But anyway, that's what I'm emphasizing, that we're doing cloud native orchestration here, which is different. But that is the last of my feedback. Present what you will, and I think it should be okay.
Yeah, and again, I don't want to I don't want to come across as I'm trying to prevent the discussion or the debate. Of course, we want to do it, but we also have we have a short time before the dev summit, so we'll need to do that prep work in the right way, and then of course we'll open it up in the dev summit to rip it apart and let the best ideas win.
Absolutely. To me, that's absolutely fine. It's yeah. All right.
Okay, should we go to the next topics on the agenda? We have 15 minutes, 20 minutes maybe.
Could you just leave comments on that slide? I think since we are not taking comments from others.
Yeah, please do add your comments on the slide.
Yeah.
I think somebody did paste the link to the deck here.
Yeah.
I will also send a note with the link to the deck separately. Yeah, I see Tal also did.
I shared it on the chat right now as well.
Yeah. I would also suggest to have some literature associated with the diagram. Then you are articulating exactly what the ideas you want to convey. If you add one slide to say, okay, these are the key points you want to deliver, then people can comment on that too.
Cool. Still a few more hands. Subhash.
Yeah,
I forget who is first.
It's on the same topic. If you have pressed on time, I thought that's what we thought, right?
Yeah, that's why I was not giving my full comments here. I was just probably going to do offline.
Yeah, actually, please do share your comments offline with me and Sana at least, so that we can incorporate those in whatever ways, limited ways we can.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, Subhash.
Am I audible? Hello?
Subhash, you're audible. Yeah, go ahead.
Am I audible?
Yes, Subhash, we can hear you. Go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, actually, I was also prepared some similar slide on architecture, so that is also there in the comment, so that we could discuss. And I have the second topic also around the service assurance. So if you would like directly jump on that, or you would like to cover something else before that.
Yeah, so I think the next topic was to go over let me share my screen, was to go over the working group updates. So let's go one by one. So there are 5 working groups. And so the first group is, I think, somewhat what we discussed, which was high-level architecture of how Nefio fits into the larger automation system. We'll talk a little bit about long-term roadmap as well, in terms of, in the same slide deck, you'll see some more updates on the long-term roadmap as well. That has been what Sana, Tal, and myself have been working on in the last, since we last, I think in the last couple of weeks or so. So that is the update for working group 1. But then I don't know who all are the key primary folks for the other working groups, but please speak up on ORAN, maybe Subhash or somebody else, if you want to quickly provide an update to SIG1.
So this is Alexi, that's my handle that you see in there. So I just need 5 minutes, but I guess I'm going to make it 1 given the time we have. There's a lot of eagerness to talk about ORAN in context of Nefio, and I think the previous discussion is a good part of it as well. So I went ahead and created a working group to ORAN G Drive folder. If possible, I would like to make sure that this is accessible for everyone to contribute documents. So I don't know how to do that. And the second one is, I know it's a bit rushed, but there is an eagerness as well for this group of people to meet before the Dev Summit. And so we landed on this Wednesday, October 4 at 8 a.m. EST. So I kindly request that the calendar is updated, because right now the invite is for today, 4 p.m. EST. And that's the only request. I won't provide any update beside these administrative tasks. Thank you.
So Alexei, is it the time for the recurring meeting, 8 a.m. EST?
Well, no, no, it's not a recurring meeting. It's a one-off meeting that needs to happen this Wednesday at 8 a.m. EST.
Thanks, buddy. Yeah, I just want to make sure that our West Coast members, it's like if it's one off, that's fine. Thank you. Yeah.
If you have the access, Bala, I can talk with you.
Yeah.
Who all have access to make the change?
Well, my understanding is that for SIG 1, it's you, Kashik, and Sana, as well as Kenny, but Kenny is out today.
Oh, I just made the change.
Yeah, I think some others can. Okay, thank you.
I have,
okay, awesome. Thanks, Tal. Now that I know you have that power, Tal, watch out. I'm going to come for you.
I have no official position. I'm just helping with the mechanics of things. So
okay.
Here, I'll share the link too. So what I did was change the folder to be anybody with a link can be a contributor, not a content manager. It means that you can upload files. So I'll share the link here on the Zoom.
Okay, so thank you. That was it for this topic, because we never discussed. There's a lot of great discussion, great topics, but that's going to be the first meeting. So by the way, in that folder, there is, I started putting together agenda and notes. So everybody that want to join this Wednesday, look at the agenda. I'm trying to prep things up. I'm by no means the lead for that team. I'm just going to help facilitate the first meeting, and then we'll figure out a more formal way to get this rolling.
Thanks, so Alexei, did you mean 8 a.m. EST, like 5 p.m., 5 a.m. EST?
8 a.m. Eastern. Yes, that's what I meant.
That is 5 a.m. Yeah, that's true.
That's 5 for Pacific folks. That's not, I don't know how many Pacific folks people can attend.
Yeah, Ravi, I think it's one-off meeting, right? It's not a recurring
one. So
one.
I thought we agreed on today 4, right? So again, so there was, I know you had a kind of an opinion, basically a poll out and stuff. So this was overridden.
Yeah, Ravi. So Joseph updated his attendance, and I need Joseph for the call because he's one of the few that contributed quite a bit in the channel. And again, this is just a one-off. So we'll record Ravi, and I think the goal is for us to just start the discussion and not to converge in any area. So I apologize, it's early for the Pacific time zone. We will find a better time onwards, but I apologize for that minute change. Thank you for understanding.
I'll try to attend, but I'll follow up on the recording. Thanks.
By the way, Tal, did you also create a meeting? Because I think Alex says you want both, right? Or because I cannot help you, unfortunately, for the meeting.
No, we just need Wednesday. We need a one-off meeting.
So someone needs to. Yeah, but someone needs to set it up, right? Correct? Or is it done?
No, that's the thing is, can you set it up for today 4, but it needs to be changed and be set up for Wednesday.
So what I'm trying to clarify is that I think Tal fixed the document repo, but not, I think, the meeting itself, just to be...
Correct. Yeah, I
is it? I see.
Okay, Tal, I thought you were my savior completely. So we need to move that meeting, that 4 p.m. meeting to 8 a.m. Wednesday, please. Whoever can do that, please update that so we don't have any mistake.
And update the agenda in the group's IO as well, right? So you always have to do both.
Thank you.
I think for SIG 1, So I think for SIG1, I think Sana, myself, and I think John also has access.
Yeah, I have
Yes, I know,
access
yeah.
to the Zoom. Anything that we scheduled to be scheduled on Zoom, I have access. So Alexei, I can do that. I can help you there, but I do not have access to the calendar.
Yeah, I think I'm
Two
just looking
separate
at it
things.
right now.
Yeah.
Actually, Tal, you also have access, if I'm not wrong, for Signatar. Oh, that's maybe only for the subgroup view.
Sure, dump it all on me. It's okay. Yeah, nope. I haven't done it yet. I think I have access, but I can try. How about this? Could you, Alexei, could you post on Slack exactly what you want to move where, and I'll try to do it. And if I get stuck, I'll let you know.
I'll ping you privately. Thank you, Tal.
Okay, you can put it not privately, so the information is
Okay.
there if I. Okay, thanks.
So in this context, I mean, I raised my hand. So I just wanted to say, I know we might have such similar meetings where the times it won't be time zone friendly for some of the folks. I mean, I know we had discussed this in the past. Just wanting to point out again, like, if we can have like a Slack meeting or like a IRC style meeting where, people who missed it can actually go look it up, the chat, that will be great where possible. I know actually always getting up on Zoom is probably always easy, but having any sort of a chat kind of a conversation for those meetings where possible would be great. It may not always be possible, but I know meetings are more easier to just get on a Zoom or Gmeet and get it done, but something to think about.
Okay, that's a good feedback. Hey, sorry, in interest of time, let's keep moving. So on the ORAN working group beyond the logistics, any updates to share with Sigwan?
No, sorry.
Okay, let's keep moving. Working group 3, there isn't much that has happened beyond, as in there are discussions ongoing, but nothing worth sharing. Working group 4 on UX and modeling.
I think working group 4 got morphed into the SDK and is becoming more a SIG2 meeting these days, from my understanding.
Yeah, no, of course that has happened, but then we need to fix that. And I would request the primary owners for working group 4 to set up the meeting and continue with the key topics. This is, by the way, I know it's a little bit maybe early to discuss about user experience and modeling in some ways, but in certain ways, user experience is not just about UIs. So it is a very important topic that we should start getting into as part of the R3 plus planning. So my request to the key people who are part of that working group to really step up and help out. I see Sandeep and Bernard. I assume both of you had volunteered. If I look at the agenda, if I look at the planning document for those working groups, and there are a few others as well. I see Wim, Tal, Sana as well. So I would request all of you to really help out with the working group for both scheduling and all the agenda planning. Okay, let's keep moving. Working group 5.
The first thing, the meeting, deciding on the meeting timing. So I have posted a poll in the channel. So I'm just waiting so that people can vote and understand this, what is the suitable time for everyone. So that we are waiting for it. And possibly from this week or by the next week, we will start the meetings. Another item, we wanted to discuss the user stories on the service assurance. So the slide we have prepared it, and it was supposed to discuss last week, but yeah, we did not get the time. And now again, it's like today we have another 5 minutes left for the meeting, so I'm not sure would be right to discuss it now because a lot of opinion discussion would be needed. So shall we take it to the next meeting?
Yeah, Subhash, I think it's a short time and next week is Dev Summit. So we all will be busy with that. What I would request is have you shared your doc or slides with whatever inputs you're seeking or trying to present with the community? I think let's do an offline review. Let's add our comments, and then it will be a much more fruitful and hopefully a easier discussion.
Okay. Shall I do it like I start the work group 5 meeting possibly this Thursday, and in Thursday I invite everyone to discuss this particular topic.
Yeah,
and
I think
give the
that's
update
yeah. I think that sounds fine.
Okay, sure.
Cool.
Okay.
So
This is
beyond
that.
that user stories discussion, is there anything else to share with SIG1?
No, this much is the progress from work group 5 side.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, now moving beyond the working group, I couldn't join last time, but I know Sana had also sent an email about potentially moving the SIG1 meeting to another day, either Tuesday or Wednesday. I know last time when the one-off meeting happened, it conflicted with SIG2, so we should deconflict it if we have to do a recurring change. But was this something that was discussed? Maybe we should conduct a poll in terms of what suitable times are possible. It looks like Sana has a conflict on a recurring basis, or for the most part, with Monday meetings, which is why she has been requesting for this change. Was something discussed on this topic last time?
No.
Okay, one of us will create a poll and request all of you to vote for Tuesday or Wednesday. Couple things to watch, keep in mind, especially we'll need to figure out, like, maybe this is where we should also do the planning of who are the key folks in, not key folks, who are the key, who are the participants in different time zones, right? There are folks in US, of course, Europe and India. So if we have to make a change, especially with daylight savings coming up in about a month from now, we should be cognizant of making any changes that we shouldn't have to revisit them in a few weeks from now. So I will start the poll, and we should. I would request everyone to participate and provide your inputs on the update, any other alternative slots by end of the week. Cool. I think we are almost at time. So couple things just to recap, right? On the workshop, the agenda is what Tal had shared. It's mostly locked in. If you still have inputs in terms of any uh, uh, updates, both to the line items as well as anything else that you want to discuss, please bring those to Sana and me for now for SIG1. Secondly, we will spend time on creating the network architecture view, keeping in mind whatever inputs we have heard from all of you, with the caveat that I had mentioned earlier. And then lastly, I will create this poll that we talked about for finding an alternative SIG1 slot. Those are the 3 updates or other action items for Sana and myself. We'll follow that through in that priority order. Was there anything else? We have a minute. Any other topics that we should quickly bring up?
Yeah, I just want to thank all our friends from India who attended this meeting on their holiday. I know it's holiday for all of you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, everyone in India. Thank you.
Including
okay,
you,
with that,
yeah, thank you.
It's fine. Thank you. So with that, we will sign off and see you all in the Dev Summit. Look forward to really great discussions and a collective forward outcome.
Cool. Yeah.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thanks a lot. Yeah, bye.
Bye.
Yeah.